You've probably heard of the Cali Lean, the Tennessee Tilt, the Carolina Squat. That's what I have going on with this truck. It is 1 inch lower in the rear than in the front. I don't like that. So I installed some airbags, and if I put it up to 60 psi, I get 1 inch high in the rear, which I like. Right there. Right there you can see the block that they put underneath the factory rear spring. You usually don't get replacement rear springs until you go to a 6-inch lift. This is a 4.5 inch lift. This is a 2 3/4 inch spacer. So what it is, it's a lift in the front and a level in the rear. Lift and level in the rear. So this does, when you order a 6-inch lift, you get 6 inches in the front, 4.5 inches in the back. So what I've done is I have ordered rear springs for a 6-inch lift kit. And that's what I'm going to be doing today. I also have the correct block for these airbags. So I've got to remove the airbag completely. I've got to remove the rear spring, the rear block completely. I got to install the new rear springs and then install the spacer bracket for the airbags and put them all back together. Now the track bar is already got a relocation bracket on it right there, and it's the same bracket that they sell with their 4.5 and their 6-inch lift. I'll see how it works when I do pump up the airbags to the ride height that I hope to get with the new springs. You can't tell any difference as far as the rear axle shifting to the right. There are some brackets that I can get that relocate a little bit more than this to get this track bar more horizontal. So I'm going to get started by pulling out the airbags. The next thing I got to do is disconnect the air hose and then undo these nuts here, and that pretty much it as far as getting the airbag out. I also got to pull this plate off and pull this drop down bracket because I do have the correct spacers for the airbag, so I don't need this. This came with the kit. It's basically like a 1.5 by 1.5 square tubing. This is a press connect. Well, actually it was just as easy as I thought it should be. You just push this in and it comes right out. So in order to get those airbags out and get the springs out and in, I've got to lift the frame of the truck off of the axle. So to start with, I'm just going to get the airbags out, and then I'll worry about disconnecting the shocks. And well, anyways, this is what I'm doing. Jacking it up by the trailer hitch, and we still have our springs in, so we're safe. But it's I don't even know what the rating is on this jack. My jack stands don't go anywhere near the frame rails, so you know, if you take it to a shop, they're going to put this on a lift and it'll be much easier. But for the guy in his driveway, maybe they make some like super duty jack stands, which I don't have. I've got some jack stands, but they really only work with like cars. Not, you know, they're not 3 feet off the ground. So the jack is maxed out. Hardly any resistance lifting the rear up. And it looks like we started coming loose, but we'll get across that bridge when we get there. Now you can see I've got lots of room underneath the airbag to pull it right out. Very easy to get these bags out. Alrighty, already got the other shock off. Get this one off. Got my DeWalt impact on here. So at this stage, about ready to call it. It's still a really easy install. It's just hard to get the truck up in the air enough to get the old springs and the old spacers out. I mean, that is jacked up. These jack stands are a joke. Those ones are about to come loose. I can wiggle them. That's about it. Not enough to easily get them out or get the new ones in. I'm gonna brainstorm for a few more minutes. It's probably best I just make an appointment at an off-road shop that's got a lift, and they can just pop these springs in probably half the time it'll take me. Here is the Air Ride Airlift spring with the spacer bracket installed. So it's ready just to go back in place. I took the bump stop out. So there used to be a bump stop drop down bracket in place here, and I took that out to create more room. Everything's bolted in place except for this U-bolt under here. This has to get positioned, so I'm going to slowly lower it down and make sure it's in the right position. There's a big like positioning washer on the front side right up here. So yeah, I'm going to lower it down, put the U-bolts on, put the air back in, and it'll be done. Just putting 10 psi in before I let it down. Okay, we got 10 psi in the bags. That's good riding around. Pressure, the lowest pressure that this will go to is 5 psi. So I'm starting to have second thoughts about putting the springs in, because at 10 psi I'm a ½ inch high in the rear, which is close to what I want. It's 12.5 inches there. Go down to the front, and I'm at just a hair under 12 inches. So that gives me about 3/4 inches high in the rear, and that's only at 10 psi. So it gives me 3/4 inches high in the rear with the weight of the topper solar panels. I don't have much more weight in here right now. I got some tire chains, but that's not much. I know from having airbags on all my trucks, riding around with 10 psi is not going to change your ride quality. Once you get to like 25 psi unloaded, then you're going to start getting a harsher ride. So I'm going to put this down to 5 psi and see if it changes at all. So at 5 psi, we're at 12.25. That's the minimum that you're supposed to be riding around with those. And that 4-inch block there is the proper spacing for this lift. I'm going to take it for a spin, see what it's like, let the suspension settle, and come back and measure. And I may be sending those big springs back if I don't need them. Well, I think I found my best solution just with those correct size spacers for the 4-inch lift for the airbags. Don't have to have much pressure in to get it slightly higher in the rear. These aren't very expensive. These are Zone Off-Road. They're the same as the BDS. These are 4.5-inch lift springs. Right here is where you get most of your lift. They call them dual rate. I don't know how much dual rate that really is. It looks dual rate. It sells dual rate, but these things here are mostly touching when they're installed. I've looked at lots of videos and pictures online. I'm going to hold on to them for maybe another week and make my decision based off the ride quality of the airbags with about 15 psi in them. Don't know what the ride quality of these is. Like I said, they're only like 250 bucks, so it's not really a money thing of not wanting to put these things in. It's just, you know, why put them in, you know, if I don't have to. We'll see. Stay tuned, subscribe, click the bell.